Warning, incoming game over. Warning, incoming game over.
Hello and welcome back to Game Over Calgary. I'm your host, Conrad Krausert. And it really seems that we need to have Anand Unnithan on to get a win on this Eastern road trip. But hello, welcome back to another performance where, in all honesty, the Flames probably played one of their better 40 minutes of play. But boy, oh boy, did that first period stink. And, it's tough to win a hockey game when you only manage to play 40 minutes against a team that played last night. But we'll go through our recap, talk a little bit about what I thought about the defense pairings today. As obviously we saw the return of Zach Whitecloud back to the lineup. Loved seeing all the pictures of him experiencing a lot of the businesses that are First Nations owned in and around Calgary. I don't know if anyone else saw that all over social media, but it seems that he's really learning the Tsuut'ina Nation, obviously with them being the closest to Calgary. Of course, all of the nations of Treaty 7 really seem to be enjoying having him on the Calgary Flames. I can't speak to that because I am not First Nations, but it's really cool to see those pictures. And then I think in the third period we'll talk about what was a strength for so long of the Calgary Flames really seems to be getting exploited. In my mind, that being the special teams for the Calgary Flames. Of course, only one opportunity today, but they have the negative of getting scored on while they're on the power play. But we'll talk about that shortly as we return here on Game Over Calgary. But let's start with that recap. Before we do, I'm going to ask you if you are around, hit that like button, hit that subscribe. So important, as I said. YouTube in the last 2 months has actually changed how they show content to everyone. So if you are watching this live here and in person with us, thank you for joining me on your Saturday. You're still watching another game on Hockey Night in Canada and have me on as background noise. I super appreciate it. Just go hit that like button. Easy as that. You hit the subscribe. It's so much better. We really want you to be able to see our content for the last part of the season, where we'll talk about the games, and we'll probably also, as this season draws even closer to its end, talk about free agency, talk about where we see this Flames team going. Just hit that like and subscribe. It's not that hard. It kind of is sometimes, especially if you're navigating on mobile, but regardless. A first period the Flames really want to forget, especially considering they're coming against a team that has played a game last night. Of course, the Islanders playing their second home game in 2 nights. Of course, it makes it a little easier when you get to go sleep in your own bed to get up for a game like today. Just the Flames getting caught in their own zone, and Kevin Ball, I don't necessarily love what he was, or know what he was thinking, trying to bank that one off the flat part of the corner boards instead of putting it into the curve to try and get out of the zone. Took a little bit of a funny hop to get to him. And Casey Cizikas, just hard work as you expect out of him. And unfortunately he finds a way, I was going to say past Wolf, but no, Dustin Wolf did not start this game. It was Logan Cooley starting between the pipes, or Devin Cooley. Logan Cooley is on Utah, Conrad, I think. Anyways, I'm going to consistently make that mistake. Just Matt C knows and is used to it. But then we'll talk about just some really poor transition play. And once again, it's Kevin Ball kind of getting roasted, as Simon Holmstrom is eventually going to be the one that puts this puck in the net. His first of 2, but it was just Braden Shen getting on his horse. And hey, if you're the defender, your job is to try and stop the pass. Let your goaltender worry about the shot. The big stick of Kevin Ball could not do that. And Simon Holmstrom gets his 15th of the year, assist to Shen, who had the hustle on Anthony Duclair, who gets back into the lineup for the Islanders. He's been somebody that's been seeing a little bit of popcorn recently, gets his assist in one of his few games back. But when it rains, it pours for the Calgary Flames. The Flames using that 5-forward power play that guys let all over the Flames media, like Eric Francis, had been so pumping the tires on. And it's Igor Sharangovich who fans on the shot at the point, puts himself in a foot race, and he's not a defender. So when JG Pajot takes him wide and then puts the pass back across, not a lot of defensive maneuvering there, and ends up being Simon Holmstrom's second goal of the game. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking, oh boy, this is just going to be one for Cooley to kind of have to wear after allowing 6 goals in his last appearance. He's just going to have to understand that he's the backup goalie, and we're not going to run Dustin Wolf into the ground. He's going to have to play this one with the game coming up again on Monday, taking on the Detroit Red Wings. But no, we're going to continue to run maybe the best young goaltender into the ground, being Dustin Wolf. He comes out to start the second after Cooley only faces 10 shots in the first. Allows 3 goals on 10 shots. Not a great save percentage for a guy that's been leading in a lot of statistical categories throughout this season. So yeah, Wolf comes in to start the second, and the second is, in my opinion, a bit of a nothing burger. Really felt the battery level for the Flames starting to pick up and the Islanders starting to slow down a little bit, but not a lot of events that I even really want to play or talk about, because I thought the second was really kind of inoffensive. Good to see Igor Sharangovich trying to get more shots on in the period. I also thought the fourth line was pretty all right in that period after thinking they were at a huge liability in the first. And that's going to be something I talk about in the third period, is my thoughts about the fourth line. Because I understand why the Flames are switching out some of the players that they are, but I don't think they're putting the right players on the ice. And I think somebody that's eating a lot of popcorn, who's a free agent at the end of this year, shouldn't necessarily be eating as much popcorn as he is. Regardless, second period, shots on goal did barely favor the Islanders, 8-7. And then the Flames started to pour it on in the third period. They did take 17 shots in the period. 2 of them find the way in behind Big Save Dave, with probably his best performance against his former team that we've seen from David Riddick. But it was Michael Backlund who opened the scoring. Takes the pass from Oli Mata and Kevin Ball playing along the line and tips that one forward. It's kind of one of those tips where I don't necessarily think David Riddick was reading it as well as he could. It's a tip that happens between the hash marks. I think he's more concerned about the tip coming from Morgan or Joel Farabee, who is parked at the side of his net, and maybe over pushes a little bit, not thinking Michael Backlund will get a stick to that one. But the captain gets his 15th of the year. Big milestone for him. I believe he moved up the Flames all-time scoring list with that goal. And it's great. It's good to see the captain continuing to play. But as Matt C said in chat, I wish it wasn't Backlund and Coleman keeping us in game. Yeah, you know, I'm with you on that one. It's been a bit of a struggle since we saw the Joel Farabee career game. That it has had to be number 20 and number 11 keeping us in it. But really good patience on the Blake Coleman goal, which we're just about to talk about. Good patience from Yan Kuznetsov, who we've seen demoted to this third pairing today now that he no longer has Mackenzie Weegar to play with. It was a beautiful pass from Blake, from him to get through a couple of Islanders' bodies. And by the way, there were 10 Islanders on the ice at a point during this. But Blake Coleman, power move, goes forehand to backhand, beats David Riddick, puts the Flames in the opportunity to ruin their ethical tank, but the fight back comes up just short. And hey, big save Dave, really the tank commander this team has always needed. But the Flames lose, continue their ethical tank, drop below 500 on the road swing once again. As I said, the Flames can only win when it ends, give you Game Over Calgary post-game shows. And so we just need to have me on for the rest of the season, is what I'm learning. But, for a game that after 20 minutes I thought was going to be an absolute stomping, similar to how we felt last week, I thought this was a good effort in the final 40 minutes from the Calgary Flames. I also thought Zane Parekh started to understand what his role will be moving forward, playing more minutes than he had in the past. But let's get on to period number 2 before I talk about that. And we'll head to period number 2, and as we do that, head on over to Andrew Berkshire's Blue Sky. He just released a big swack of data about when penalties are assessed in the NHL. And this took a lot of work on the part of Mr. Berkshire, because I know we as Calgary Flames fans feel that we, for a long time, were targeted by the referees for a long time. Okay, it's not in his Blue Sky. Maybe it'll be on the network. But he has done an analysis of when penalties are given based on if the teams are leading. It's effectively to see if makeup calls are a thing. It's got a ton of data. It's actually over on the Eyes on the Prize. But if you go over to the Game Over Network on Blue Sky, it is the first link under the pinned comment. Go give it a look, because it's a full database that was based on a hunch that Andrew had on how Montreal was being affected. And now he's kind of put it into play where it's looking at the whole league and how every team is affected, not just Montreal. So go give it a look. Go give it a long glance and understand what it means. And it's viewable free of charge, so go give it a look. It is just a Google Doc or a Google Sheet that Andrew is working on, and it looks at how the Flames are being affected. I haven't had a chance to look over it. I'm going on a 5K run tomorrow, so I had to run out to Cross Iron Mills today, go get waterproof or water-resistant joggers so that I'm not going to freeze to death tomorrow. But please, go give it a look. It's a lot of really interesting data. But now with this fully actually into period number 2, I really wanted to take a look at the pairings today. Because it was an interesting set of pairings for your Calgary Flames. It was Kevin Ball and Oli Mata, your top pairing. And if you look at it, they were on the ice together for 15:37 of the game. Of course, that line of the single-digit defenders. And then you had Zach Whitecloud in his first game back, out with Yan Kuznetsov. They played 14-10 together and were on for the most expected goals for, just to note. And they were pairing number 3. Obviously, I don't think Whitecloud's 100%. If he was, I don't think he's going to have his minutes less than Zane Parekh. And then it was the Joel Hanley and Zane Parekh. combination. The only combination that saw a little bit of play as a unit together as well was Ball and Prek. I apologize. Kuznetsov and Whiteclaw were on the most expected goals for, and the most expected goals against. Interesting little stat there. Of course, all my stat gathering via Money Puck. I don't necessarily think that it should be Hanley and Perek in the short, medium, long term for the development of Zayden Perek. Of course, it's this whole, do we load manage Zayden Perek? How do we manage expectations with this alleged superstar that only has 3 points on the year? I don't have that number off the top of my head. I should. But it's been a struggle for him. And I think if you're going to see if he sinks or swims, you can't have him with a babysitter any longer. I think it needs to be put the two kids together, put him on the ice with probably Yan Kuznetsov over on the other side and see what happens. Yes, it is the 2 points, 2 assists for Zane this year, 3 total through his NHL career. I gotta cut the training wheels off at some point, and I obviously understand that coaching and management doesn't want to see him sink, doesn't want to put him in that position. But are you always going to have a Joel Hanley on your squad? Are you always going to have someone to need to hold the hand of Zane Perek? Or does he eventually, I know he's 19, I'm probably being a little too harsh on the young man, but is he going to need that Robin Regeer type presence for his entire career? If he is he truly going to develop as a player? I don't necessarily think so. I think it's time to put him and the young Yan Kuznetsov together, and what's the worst that happens? We win, or we lose 2 more games than we win on this back stretch of games for the Calgary Flames. I'm pretty okay with that. I think a lot of Flames fans understand that Mission McKenna is still all forces a go. But I think it's time to address that, or at least look at that as something that maybe if we're down 3 goals going into late in a game, throw the kids out. Go see if the kids are all right together. And then another point I saw raised is you've now used a regular call-up. It's no longer just an emergency call-up with Hunter Brustevich. But yet still he's scratched for 3 out of the 5 games of this New York tri-state area road swing. I understand not wanting to, or you feel that you need to have this Ball and Mata pairing to eat some minutes. But I think then maybe you need to just move back to the Ball White Cloud pairing once he's fully back and ready as your minute munching line, and then throw Mata over on the left, take Hanley out of the lineup, have him go eat popcorn with what's his Braden Pahal. There we go. I remember the Flames roster. Have Hanley and Pahal enjoy being a defense pairing up in the rafters, and just kind of see what has happened with Hunter Brustevich. Because if Brustevich and Perek, and to a lesser extent Kuznetsov, are your future, the future is now, old man. Like, it's time to just really assess what these players are, what they need to improve in the offseason against NHL caliber talent. We know what Joel Hanley is. We know what Kevin Ball is. We know what Oli Mata is. Maybe we don't know what White Cloud is due to his injury, but he missed 4 games. Like, it's not a career-changing industry or career-changing injury that he withtook. It's time to see what these Flames are. And I think there's a lot of people who think like me and a lot of people that maybe disagree with my train of thought. But I think it's time to at least see if that is going to be what is best for this Flames team moving forward. And then let's use this third period, because let's head on over to there, because I know a lot of people are going to go have dinner or are eating dinner now and are watching this back a little bit later. Saw the lines go a little bit in the blender as far as the forward lines went today. Of course, it was a little bit interesting looking at the Calgary Flames lines heading into this. I should have had the line rosters up, so I didn't have to do this brief little talk. But once again, you saw the separation of Morgan Frost and Joel Farabee. Putting Joel Farabee up with the safety blanket that is Michael Backlund and Blake Coleman. You saw Gridden, Frost, Coronado, and as was said in chat, Matt Coronado up to 42 shots in a row without a goal. Eventually, one of them's got to go in for Matty C. I feel bad for the dude, especially someone who was probably counting on his past success playing against the Rangers, playing in New York, as something to get him off the schneid, just to see that that didn't happen for this player. It hurts a little bit. And then Sharangovich, Strome, and Olofsson. We finally got to see the shot from Olofsson, with the Flames finally getting some power play time. I don't necessarily think he's the one that needed the elevated ice time. But obviously, Brian Huska not happy with the play of Connor Zary, demoting him all the way to the fourth line. And I don't think there is any way that Connor Zary should be on the fourth line. I am of the opinion that if Connor Zary is not good enough and not playing well enough to be in your top three lines, he needs to be eating popcorn, and it needs to be Ryan Lomberg in there as the spark plug that he is 10 times out of 10. Because Connor Zary, if you're looking to get a jump from him, he looked absolutely invisible. I'll just call it as I see it. Like, this is not a player that has necessarily excelled in that checking role ever. Even when he's in that third line scenario, I don't think that's where he belongs. Maybe he's there as a center for limited time action because of injury, but I just don't see it with Connor Zary being a bottom line player. Of course, there's been short sample sizes where he's been good as that role, but if you are going to not move Ryan Lomberg at the trade deadline, and as I said earlier, before the trade deadline, that I would like to see Lomberg extended, you can't just keep scratching Ryan Lomberg and expecting this team to play with heart, play with passion. Because in so many games, it has been Ryan Lomberg drawing this team back into the fight. And maybe you're of the opinion that, hey, you shouldn't need external stimuli or anyone else to draw you in. But we've seen it for years now that it neither had to be Nazem Kadri pushing guys back into the fight, or it's been Lomberg in vast stretches. It's been Martin Pospisil when he's got some grit to his game. Speaking of another guy who wasn't in the lineup today. I don't know. Like, am I crazy for thinking Lomberg needs to be there? Maybe. It's tough. And of course, it's a different story if you don't have Jonathan Huberdeau on potentially career-ending LTIR. Of course, maybe it's different if Sam Honzek doesn't have his extended stay on the IR for this whole season. Even though I'd probably, if he wasn't on IR, I think he'd probably be spending a lot of time with the Wranglers. Who knows? And hey, I don't know if KQ is still around, but the legend of Jake Bean, who knows what this season is if he is in this lineup. But I guess it's time to really just analyze what future this team has and whether some of the team's struggles can be related back to the inability of this coaching staff to find lines or innovate with these lines in a way to understand what this team is or how to get them into their best form. But let's take a look around the league as this game finishes to see what the teams around us are doing, and also look at the fact that Dallas is rolling another opponent that the Flames will get to face in the next few days, up 2-0 on the Detroit Red Wings, who are very suddenly finding themselves in the struggle bus as they try to drag themselves into the playoffs. Teams around us in the battle or the Mission McKenna or whatever you want to call it, Iceberg for Stenberg or whatever we're calling it. Teams around us, we have not seen Vancouver hit the ice yet. That's a 10 p.m. start, or a 10 p.m. Eastern start, 9 p.m. local, so in about an hour from now that game gets going. Obviously, we saw St. Louis beat Edmonton last night, so they continue to widen the gap away from Mission McKenna. Winnipeg also picking up a win over the Colorado Avalanche. And boy, howdy, have they not looked good, despite the addition of Nazem Kadri. The Rangers also pick up a win. So teams that the Flames are in contention with, other than Vancouver, are starting to find some wins. So we'll have to keep on watching. Of course, Winnipeg, they play back-to-backs, and they will be up against the Winnipeg Jets tomorrow. And to go back to yesterday a little bit further, even Vancouver picked up a win on Nashville. So the tank ride continues to let me off this crazy thing at some point. And a correction, the Vancouver game was on the 12th. And they're tied 0-0. Of course, that game just started and I can't read time zones. But for myself, Conrad Krausert, and for everyone around the network, I'm going to call this one here. As I said earlier, I have a 5K to run tomorrow. So if you are up and around Central Memorial High School in Calgary and area, and you see some people running down the streets, let me know. Give me a wave. Say, hey, Conrad, your takes suck. We'll be around. So give me a wave, give me a cowbell. I don't know. It's my first 5K that I've run, since I was in junior high. So let's hope I don't die. Hope I will be back on Monday for when the Flames take on the Detroit Red Wings. Have a good night, everyone.